Discipline behaves in a strange way. When real crises appear, people often rise to meet them. Urgency sharpens the mind. Focus becomes intense. Effort suddenly feels natural. But when the moment is ordinary, when nothing forces action, discipline begins to fade, not dramatically, but quietly. A task is delayed. Attention drifts. One small compromise replaces intention with convenience. And over time, those quiet compromises shape an entire life. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a man responsible for the stability of the Roman Empire noticed this same weakness within himself. His name was Marcus Aurelius. During long campaigns along the northern frontier, far from the marble halls of Rome, he lived among soldiers in rough military camps, facing brutal winters and constant uncertainty. In those harsh conditions, leadership demanded more than authority. It demanded control over the mind. In quiet moments between the pressures of command, Marcus Aurelius wrote short reminders to keep his thinking disciplined and steady. These reflections were simple, direct, and brutally honest. Instead of trying to control the chaos around him, he focused on something far more difficult, controlling his reactions to it. Over time, a few ideas kept returning in those writings. The same reminders repeated whenever pressure, anger, or distraction threatened his clarity. And those repeated ideas would eventually form something powerful. Not theories, not speeches, but rules for staying disciplined when the mind begins to drift. The real question is simple. Could those same rules control your mind today? 1. Most people think discipline collapses when life becomes overwhelming. But Marcus Aurelius noticed something stranger. Discipline rarely breaks in chaos. It breaks in ordinary moments. Not during crisis when urgency sharpens the mind, but during the quiet parts of the day, when effort becomes optional. Nothing dramatic happens, just a small decision. This can wait. That's how control slowly slips away. Marcus Aurelius observed that people rarely lose their discipline all at once. Instead, they drift not because they are weak, but because their priorities quietly shift toward whatever feels easiest in the moment. And once priorities become unclear, the mind begins reacting instead of choosing. This was the weakness he kept confronting in himself. So he created a simple mental reset, something he returned to at the start of each day. Not a philosophy, not a long reflection, just a single question. A question designed to cut through distraction and restore clarity immediately. What is my duty today? That question forced the mind back to what mattered. No excuses, no drifting, just responsibility. And once responsibility became clear, discipline followed naturally. This was the first foundation of Stoic self-discipline. But Marcus Aurelius understood something else, something even more difficult to master. Because knowing your duty is one thing, controlling your reactions while performing it is another. And that leads directly to the next Stoic rule. Before we explore it, if you enjoy deep insights into Stoic philosophy and mental discipline, consider subscribing. It helps the channel continue sharing ideas like these. Now here's where Stoic discipline becomes far more demanding. Because the next principle isn't about direction. It's about control over your inner world when circumstances refuse to cooperate. 2. Most people think discipline disappears because life becomes difficult. Marcus Aurelius noticed something more subtle. It fades when life becomes too comfortable. Not during crises, when urgency forces action, but during calm periods, when nothing seems urgent and effort feels optional. This is where many people quietly drift. Not because they lack ability, but because comfort slowly lowers their standards. Marcus Aurelius resisted that drift with a simple principle. Treat every day as a chance to practice character. Not to achieve something extraordinary, but to prove, even in small moments, that your standards still exist. Because character is not formed during dramatic victories. It is revealed in the quiet decision to do what should be done even when no pressure demands it. Finishing a task you could easily postpone. Keeping a promise that nobody would notice if you ignored. Resisting the impulse to waste an hour you plan to use, well, these moments appear ordinary, yet they quietly train the mind to obey intention rather than convenience. And over time, something important begins to change. Discipline stops feeling like a struggle between effort and comfort. It becomes a personal standard you refuse to lower. Not because someone is watching, but because you no longer negotiate with your own principles. Marcus Aurelius believed this was the beginning of real self-discipline. But he also warned about a force far more dangerous than comfort. A force that can destroy discipline even in people with strong principles. Because the next Stoic rule deals with something far harder to control than habits. It deals with your reactions when the world refuses to cooperate. 3. There is a strange habit inside the human mind. It exaggerates future discomfort. A difficult conversation feels terrifying before it happens. A demanding task feels unbearable before it begins. An uncertain situation feels overwhelming before it even arrives. Marcus Aurelius noticed this pattern constantly. The mind suffers more from anticipation than from reality. So, the Stoics practiced a powerful exercise. They would occasionally imagine themselves in the very situations they feared, losing fewer possessions, fewer comforts, fewer guarantees, and sit with that possibility long enough for the fear to weaken. Not as pessimism, as preparation. Because once the mind confronts what it fears, something surprising happens. The imagined catastrophe begins to shrink. What once felt unbearable suddenly looks manageable. And when fear loses its exaggeration, discipline gains stability. You stop avoiding necessary actions simply because they feel uncomfortable in advance. You face them directly. Marcus Aurelius believed this mental training created a rare kind of calm, the calm of someone who has already looked at difficulty and realized it is not as powerful as it first appeared. But even a calm mind faces another challenge. A challenge that doesn't come from imagined fears or future discomfort. It comes suddenly, without warning, and it can take control of a person's judgment in seconds. Because the next Stoic rule deals with the moment when emotion tries to replace reason. 4. There is a quiet habit that destroys discipline faster than failure ever could. Wasted attention. Marcus Aurelius noticed how easily the mind becomes trapped by things it cannot change. A careless remark, an unfair decision, a situation that refuses to unfold the way we planned. And once the mind locks onto those things, something dangerous happens. Energy starts leaking away, not through action, through frustration. Imagine this moment. You send an important message, and hours pass with no reply. Nothing dramatic has happened, yet the mind begins spinning stories. Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? What does this mean? Suddenly, your focus is gone. Your peace is gone. Your attention now belongs to something completely outside your control. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to interrupt that spiral immediately, not by forcing the situation to change, but by redirecting the only thing that truly mattered, his attention. Instead of asking why events unfolded the way they did, he returned his focus to the one place where power still existed. His next action, his next thought, his next decision. That shift is where Stoic freedom begins. The moment you stop wasting energy on what cannot be moved and place it entirely on what can. When that discipline becomes natural, something remarkable happens. External events lose their ability to dominate your mind. But Marcus Aurelius understood there was still one force capable of hijacking that focus instantly. A force faster than logic, faster than discipline. A force that can take control of the mind before reason has time to intervene. Emotion. And the next Stoic rule exists to teach one skill: how to regain control in the exact moment emotion tries to take it. 5. Marcus Aurelius noticed a quiet moment that most people dismiss. A moment that seems small, but slowly reshapes a person's character. It happens late at night. You set the alarm for the morning with clear intention. Tomorrow you will wake up early. You will begin the work. You will move your life forward. Morning arrives. The alarm sounds. And for a few seconds, there is a choice. Get up or silence it. Most people silence it. Nothing dramatic happens after that. The day continues. But Marcus Aurelius understood that the real consequence isn't the lost hour. It's the message the mind receives. A silent realization forms. My decisions can be postponed. And once that idea settles into the mind, discipline becomes fragile. Marcus Aurelius refused to let his character be shaped by those quiet negotiations. To him, discipline was not about punishment or extreme effort. It was about something deeper. Integrity, the alignment between what you decide and what you actually do. When that alignment becomes strong, something powerful happens. Your mind stops arguing with itself. Action follows intention naturally, and discipline stops feeling like a battle. It becomes personal authority, the calm certainty that when you make a decision, it will stand. But Marcus Aurelius warned that even strong personal authority can collapse in a single moment. Not because of laziness, not because of temptation, because of a thought that appears during difficulty, a thought that sounds harmless, yet quietly destroys resolve. And the next Stoic rule exists to expose that thought before it takes control. 6. Marcus Aurelius noticed a subtle danger in criticism. Not that it exists, but that people rarely examine it. Most reactions to criticism are immediate, defensive, emotional, automatic. Someone questions your decision. A colleague doubts your idea. A stranger dismisses your effort. And before you even analyze what was said, the mind rushes to react. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to pause in that exact moment. Because criticism is rarely the real problem. The real problem is unexamined criticism. The Stoics developed a simple mental filter. Whenever someone challenged them, they separated the message into two possibilities. Either it questioned their reasoning, or it attacked their confidence. If it questioned reasoning, it deserved attention, because truth is always valuable. But if it only attacked confidence, it deserved nothing. No anger, no defense, no emotional energy, just silence. Most criticism falls into this second category. Noise disguised as judgment. And once a person learns to recognize that difference, something shifts internally. Criticism stops controlling behavior. It becomes information, sometimes useful, often irrelevant, but never powerful enough to disturb your direction. This is where Stoic discipline becomes visible, not in moments of praise, but in moments when judgment appears and you remain unmoved. Yet Marcus Aurelius warned that mastering external criticism is only the beginning, because the next challenge is far more persistent. It does not come from strangers. It does not come from colleagues. It comes from a voice that follows you everywhere, the quiet voice inside your own mind. And that voice can be far more convincing than any critic. 8. Marcus Aurelius believed discipline rarely collapses during great challenges. It collapses in small, forgettable moments. Moments most people barely notice. Imagine this situation. You are working on something important. Hours of effort are behind you, but suddenly the task becomes frustrating. Progress slows. The mind searches for an escape. Not a dramatic one, just something small. Checking messages, opening another tab, walking away for a minute. Nothing feels like failure. Yet Marcus Aurelius understood something dangerous about moments like this. They quietly redefine your standards. Every small retreat teaches the mind a lesson. Difficulty means stop. The Stoics refused to let that lesson take root. Whenever resistance appeared, they interrupted the moment with a single question. What action respects my principles right now? Not what is comfortable, not what the mood prefers, but what the standard requires. Sometimes the answer is simple. Return to the task. Stay with the difficulty. Finish what was started. And when this response is repeated often enough, something important changes. The mind stops searching for escape because it learns that discipline is no longer negotiable. This is where Stoic self-command quietly forms, not through motivation, but through consistent respect for one's own standards. Yet Marcus Aurelius warned that even strong discipline can collapse for one unexpected reason. Not exhaustion, not temptation, but a single misunderstanding. The meaning you assign to struggle itself. 9. Marcus Aurelius relied on a question most people never ask themselves. Not during the day, but after it ends. When the noise fades and the mind becomes quiet, he would pause and ask, how did I conduct myself today? Not what did I achieve? Not what went wrong, but how did I behave? Because the Stoics believed discipline is not revealed by results. It is revealed by conduct. During the day, actions happen quickly. Decisions are made. Reactions appear. And the mind immediately moves on to the next task. Without reflection, those moments disappear. But Marcus Aurelius refused to let them vanish unnoticed. Instead, he paused long enough to observe something important. Patterns, small habits of thought, subtle reactions, the tone of his own behavior. This habit slowly created something powerful, a second awareness inside the mind, a quiet observer that began watching his actions while they were happening, not hours later, in the moment itself. And once that observer appears, discipline changes. Impulses become visible. Excuses become obvious. The mind becomes harder to deceive. You start living differently because you know your own judgment is watching. But Marcus Aurelius discovered something else through this practice, something deeper than simple self-observation. A realization that explains why discipline collapses for most people. It is not effort. It is not temptation. It is something far more subtle. The meaning people attach to difficulty itself. 10. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people overlook. Discipline is rarely decided in dramatic moments. It is decided in brief, almost invisible choices. A comment that irritates you. A task you suddenly want to abandon. A responsibility that feels inconvenient. In those seconds, the mind quietly moves toward the easiest direction. And that is where character is decided. Marcus Aurelius began to see these moments differently, not as interruptions, but as crossroads, points where a person chooses which version of themselves moves forward. Imagine a simple moment. You are close to finishing something important. Fatigue appears. The mind offers an easy suggestion. Finish it tomorrow. No one would notice. No one would blame you. But the Stoics believed that moments like this carry unusual weight because they teach the mind what to do the next time difficulty appears. If you step away, the mind learns retreat. If you continue, the mind learns resolve. Over time, these tiny decisions quietly shape identity. Marcus Aurelius did not believe discipline came from motivation. He believed it came from repeatedly choosing the better direction at these crossroads, again and again, until the choice becomes instinct. That was the real strength behind his philosophy. Not power, not position, but the quiet ability to govern his own responses. And the same crossroads appear in your life every day. Most people walk past them without noticing. The Stoics stopped there and chose carefully. So tonight, remember this. The next difficult moment will arrive sooner than you expect. When it does, which version of you will step forward? Before you leave, consider one strange detail about Marcus Aurelius. He ruled an empire, commanded armies, and faced constant pressure. Yet the hardest battles he wrote about were not against enemies. They were against the quiet moments when the mind begins to weaken. The moments when doubt appears, when effort feels pointless, when life hits harder than expected. Those are the moments that decide who a person becomes. But the Stoics believed something most people never realize. When life breaks your plans, it is also giving you the exact conditions needed to rebuild yourself. That idea is the focus of the next video on your screen. In Rebuild Yourself, Become Unbreakable, When Life Hits Hard, Stoicism, we explore how Stoic thinkers train their minds to recover after failure, pressure, and loss. Not just to survive it, but to return stronger and more disciplined than before. If you want to understand how people like Marcus Aurelius rebuilt themselves when life became difficult, that video is where the real lesson continues. And if you want to keep learning the ideas that strengthen the mind, subscribe to Stoicism, because here we don't chase motivation. We train the mind to remain steady when life tests it. Now continue the journey. The next lesson is waiting on your screen.